This dog was about to be put down, until an old man hugged him one last time. What happened next will leave you speechless. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. In the farthest corner of the shelter, behind a rusted door, lay a German shepherd whose time had almost run out. His once proud coat was dull, his eyes clouded with sadness. He didn't bark like the others. He simply stared at the floor, as if he already knew what was coming. Two shelter workers whispered quietly by the entrance. "He's next," one of them said, glancing toward the lonely dog. "No one's ever come for him. Poor thing doesn't have much time left." The dog's ears twitched slightly, though. He didn't lift his head. The air felt thick with sorrow, heavy with the unspoken truth of what would happen before the day ended. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance, and the faint sound of footsteps approached the shelter door. A visitor was coming, but for this forgotten dog, it might already be too late. The shelter door creaked open, letting in a gust of cold, damp air. An old man stepped inside, his movements slow and careful, as if each step carried the weight of years. He wore a faded red cap and a worn yellow sweater, its sleeves frayed from time. His gray beard framed a face etched with both sorrow and kindness. He paused for a moment, letting his eyes adjust to the dim light. The sounds of the shelter, soft whimpers, distant barks, the dripping of water, echoed quietly around him. He walked down the row of cages, leaning slightly on the wall for support, as pairs of hopeful eyes followed him. Some dogs barked excitedly, some wagged their tails, but he moved past them with a slow, steady rhythm. Then, he reached the last cage. The German shepherd lifted his head for the first time, ears twitching as he met the man's gaze. For a long moment, neither moved. It was as if time held its breath, letting their silent connection speak louder than words ever could. The old man knelt, his knees creaking, and whispered softly, "Hey, boy." The German shepherd blinked slowly, and for the first time in days, a faint spark returned to his eyes. The shelter worker approached cautiously, holding a clipboard close to his chest. He cleared his throat softly. "Sir," he said, his voice low, "this one, he doesn't have much time left. If no one adopts him today." His voice trailed off, the unspoken words heavy in the air. The old man didn't answer right away. His fingers slipped through the cold metal bars, brushing gently against the German shepherd's fur. The dog didn't pull away. Instead, he leaned closer, pressing his head against the man's trembling hand, as if he had been waiting his entire life for this single touch. A lump formed in the man's throat. He had lost so much in his life, his wife, his closest friends, the quiet home he now occupied alone. Looking into the dog's eyes, he felt the same familiar loneliness staring back at him, raw and unfiltered. "I just wanted to see him, to give him a hug before he goes," the old man whispered, his voice cracking. The shelter worker hesitated, then slowly unlocked the cage. The moment the door opened, the German shepherd stepped out cautiously, his body thin and trembling, yet his tail wagged ever so slightly. The man sank to his knees, wrapping his arms around the dog, pulling him close against his chest. The shelter fell silent, save for the soft patter of rain and the sound of a lonely heart finally finding its match. The German shepherd pressed his head into the old man's chest, letting out a soft, shaky whimper. His eyes fluttered closed, as if he had finally found a place where he felt safe. The old man stroked the dog's back slowly, his voice trembling as he whispered, "It's okay, boy. You're not alone anymore." The shelter workers watched quietly, their own expressions softening. They had seen countless animals come and go, but there was something different about this moment. A fragile bond forming in front of their eyes, raw and unspoken. One worker wiped at his eye discreetly. Minutes passed like hours. The old man finally pulled back slightly to look at the dog's face. "You deserve a second chance," he said, his voice firm despite the tears brimming in his eyes. "If no one else will give it to you, then I will." The shelter staff blinked in surprise. "Sir, are you saying you want to adopt him?" one asked hesitantly. The old man nodded. "I came here thinking I'd just say goodbye. But I can't. I can't let him go like this. He still has love left to give. And so do I." In that quiet, rain-scented room, Hope bloomed where despair had been. The paperwork began, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the German shepherd wagged his tail with genuine joy. The rain had stopped by the time the old man stepped out of the shelter with the German shepherd by his side. The air smelled fresh, washed clean by the storm, and the world seemed quieter somehow, as if it, too, had paused to witness this moment. The dog hesitated at the doorway, sniffing the damp earth before taking his first tentative steps into freedom. The old man crouched beside him. "It's a big world out here, isn't it?" he said softly, his hand resting on the dog's back. "But don't worry. I'm here." The dog looked up at him, eyes glistening with trust that hadn't been there before. They walked slowly toward the parking lot, each step a promise of a new life. Other dogs barked from behind the shelter walls, but for the German shepherd, that chapter was finally closed. As they reached the man's old pickup truck, the dog hesitated again. The man opened the passenger door and patted the seat. "Come on, buddy. Let's go home." The dog climbed up, paws muddy, tail wagging uncertainly, but with a flicker of hope. The drive was quiet, the only sound the steady hum of the engine and the rhythmic patter of raindrops dripping from the trees. The old man reached over occasionally to scratch behind the dog's ears, and each time, the shepherd leaned closer, pressing his head against the man's arm. When they arrived at a modest countryside home, the dog jumped out and sniffed the grass, tail wagging with growing excitement. For the first time in a long time, the old man felt warmth in his heart, a home that was no longer empty. The German shepherd explored the small house with cautious curiosity, sniffing every corner and pausing at the fireplace, where a few old photographs of the man's family rested on the mantel. The old man watched from his armchair, a faint smile on his lips, feeling a spark of life in a home that had felt empty for far too long. After a few minutes, the dog returned to his side, curling up at his feet with a heavy sigh, as if he finally allowed himself to rest. The man leaned down, gently scratching behind his ears. "You're safe now, boy," he whispered. "No one's ever going to leave you again." That night, the sound of rain was replaced by the soft rhythm of a dog's breathing, filling the house with a comfort the old man hadn't realized he was missing. When he finally drifted to sleep, he dreamed of long walks, sunny afternoons, and the feeling of companionship he thought he'd lost forever. Weeks passed, and the transformation was remarkable. The German shepherd's coat grew glossy, his eyes brightened, and his tail wagged freely whenever he heard the old man's voice. They became inseparable, gardening in the yard, sharing quiet breakfasts, and watching sunsets from the porch. One evening, as the old man sat on the porch, the dog rested his head on his lap, gazing at him with unwavering loyalty. Tears welled in the man's eyes. "I thought I came to say goodbye," he murmured. "But you gave me a reason to live again." The camera fades out on the two of them sitting together, a picture of healing and love, proof that sometimes a single act of kindness can save not just one life, but two. Some stories don't need a perfect ending, just a chance for love to begin.